for the first time ever, a union president spoke at the Republican National Convention. Teamsters President Shan OBrien closed out the first night of the RNC by calling out big business for waging a war against American workers. For context, the Teamsters are one of the largest unions, and they've supported Democrats for decades. Let's watch.
The American people aren't stupid. They know the system is broken. We all know how Washington is run. Working people have no chance of winning this fight. That's why I'm here today, because I refuse to keep doing the same things my predecessors did. Today, the Teamsters are here to say we are not beholden to anyone or any party.
OBrien also advocated for a bipartisan coalition to support American workers and added that the Teamsters aren't interested in whether there's a D or an R or an I next to the name. They just want to know what the candidate is doing to help American workers. Now, the Teamsters have yet to endorse a presidential candidate.
Many reacted to the fiery speech online. TYT's Anna Kasparian tweeted, quote, Shan OBrien's RNC speech wasn't just historic because it was something you never hear at the RNC. I don't expect anyone in the party to take corporate greed to task. That didn't happen historically and it won't happen now. I do expect workers to do it through organized labor power. Labor is nonpartisan. A speech like that helps energize workers. Popular X user Greg Price wrote, quote, the president of one of the largest labor unions in the country is speaking at the Republican National Convention about how Amazon and the Chamber of Commerce are ripping off workers while praising J.D. Vance and Josh Hawley, the realignment in action. So this was historic. This has not happened before. My understanding is the Teamsters did endorse Ronald Reagan in '84, although they didn't speak at the convention. But it is almost always the case that the labor unions endorse the Democrat, which they might do here. They've just not endorsed anyone yet. I do think it is reflective of an attempted realignment of what I said in an earlier segment of workers, of labor, working class people being more socially and comfortably, socially comfortable around Republicans and sort of a conservative ethos, and the Republican Party doing better over time, vis-a-vis the person of Donald Trump, Republicans pulling in more of those voters. Whether that will result in different policies does remain to be seen, and I do appreciate your skepticism that the Republican Party is actually shifting gears and is going to suddenly have all this pro-worker legislation, although I do think J.D. Vance has certainly a record more that direction than just about any other Republican.
Right. You had Shan OBrien there really making the case in prime time, saying that the elites have no party. The elites only care about their balance sheet. And to say that in a room of elites is very bold. Shan OBrien used his time well at the RNC, and this is definitely going to put pressure on Republicans to have more progressive labor policy. The 48 sponsors of the PRO Act to protect the right to organize for literally unions has 48 sponsors in the Senate that are Democrats, 0 that are Republicans. And so it's good to have a labor leader there saying, hey, you guys could get these votes. They're up for grabs if you embrace a labor agenda. Now, of course, because the party is beholden to big tech, to CEOs, to big business, people who want to cut corporate profits, they still hold on to this idea that one day trickle economics will work. It will not, but at least this will push them a little bit left on labor policy, and that really opens a window for Democrats to be more staunchly supportive of unions and organized labor in the country and push an agenda that would be better for the working class than what the Republicans and Democrats have been doing.
Right, because it is also the Democrats. Obviously, there's a lot of corporate pressure within the Democratic Party as well. It's different. Sometimes it's different CEOs lobbying Democrats, but CEOs nonetheless. The Democrats are increasingly the party of, maybe not, I think the very, very wealthiest people tend to be Republican. Elon Musk has pledged, 45 million a month till the election to help reelect Donald Trump. Bill Ackman is there. There was another, David Sachs spoke yesterday at the RNC. So I think it's fair to say there are very, very big businesses supporting Donald Trump. Of course, there are, supporting Democrats as well. and then at the kind of like slightly still elite but not billionaire level, the professional managerial class, the highly educated and wealthy and affluent white elites are now disproportionately Democrat. Those are the people that Trump really lost over the course of the last 8 years, or Republicans have lost because of Trump, is well-educated, wealthy white elites, and black elites as well. Whereas the Republicans have gained among less highly educated, less wealthy, working class people in the suburbs and in rural America, in the Midwest, et cetera. So whether that compels the party to eventually have a different political agenda remains to be seen. Obviously, Donald Trump and Joe Biden are both very enthusiastic about tariffs as one economic policy that I'm not particularly a fan of, and I don't think they work very well. And in fact, they just, in my view, and in the views of many economists, just end up raising prices for American consumers without having much offsetting positive impact. But Biden has recently proposed a bunch of tariffs on Chinese goods, and Trump wants to extend them, and Trump did the first. So there is a shifting in that direction on the Republican side.
Yeah, I mean, 66% of voting age Americans are participating in presidential elections. That 34% is majorly working class people. I think a lot of the working class in America has a distaste for any politician, for all politics, because they've seen so much promise to them. And the country in economic decline, whether a Republican or a Democrat is in office. And so they're pretty jaded and apathetic with politics. A lot of the voting class is already the middle class. And so this divide and people framing Trump supporters as being working class, a lot of studies have found that they're overwhelmingly middle class, and that working class people are just not participating in the political process. And so I think there's an opportunity for unions to say, we have some sway, we can push an agenda, we have workers that are organized all together in their workplaces around the country. We can ask them what kind of policies they want to see. We can ask them what they think needs to change in their workplace, that they need a fair share of the profits that they help produce for the companies they work for. This is why you have UAW President Shawn Fain saying, actually, what we're going to do now is we're going to do a general strike in 2028 if we don't see the policies pushed by the administration that we want to have happen. And so it's a big moment for labor. It's a big moment for workers. And whether you're in a union or not, you can benefit from this kind of pressure on the elites in the country to unrig the economy against the working class. Shawn Fain has a role to play there at the RNC. Chris Smalls has a role to play as the actual labor leader of the Amazon union that was a worker at Amazon, not the typical union boss. And there's a role to be played by the democratically elected Shawn Fain, who's been pressured under a Democratic administration by the federal oversight officer of the UAW to withdraw their political statements on the administration's position in Gaza. And so we've seen Republican and Democrat administrations not be particularly friendly to the political power of unions, and it's good to flex that power wherever you can.
Well, I know that some workers have mixed feelings. I mean, they're supportive of unions and understand unions are good for their own economic interests, but sometimes, I know this from reading Bacha Sargan. I read her book about working people. Bacha used to help co-host the show and appear on it. She said in her book, she says that some workers feel that union leadership has let them down in the past, or has been engaged in larger political battles that don't pertain to working people. And many workers are Republican, increasingly Republican, and maybe took some umbrage at the union leadership being reflexively pro-Democrat, instead of saying that, no, if you want us to support you, you need to really earn our support. You need to propose policies that are good for our members. So what I read this is as an attempt to, even if they're ultimately going to endorse Biden or Democrats, is to extort more, is to get more out of them. Say, you can't take us for granted. We're not going to be just automatically in your camp without you doing anything for us.
Yeah, we've also had Sarah Nelson with the airline workers be one of the main union leaders that's challenged both Republicans and Democrats with this pay-for debate. We're going to pay for all of the policies that our country needs through raising tariffs, through raising taxes, through taxing the rich. And Sarah Nelson has firmly said the people who study the monetary system the most are economists like Stephanie Kelton, like Randall Wray, financial experts like Warren Mosler, and they're clearly saying that the Congress has the power of the purse. We can afford to spend money so long as we are not spending dollars into an economy where our real productive resources are already put to use. And Trump said it himself, it was fine that he raised the national debt because it was under his presidency. So what does that tell you? That they know this all very well, and they use the debt as an excuse for austerity politics, less resources, less of a good economy for everyday working people, and more profits for the elites and the shareholders of the biggest companies. So had to shout out Sarah Nelson on that as well. I know I shouted out the boys, but she deserves her flowers.
Well, we'll have to debate that at a later date, because that does it for us today on Rising. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll have another great show for you tomorrow.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while you're on the go, we are available wherever you get your podcasts.
See you tomorrow.
Bye, y'all.